This conference will now be recorded.
I would do the pledge of allegiance. Oops. Seconds. What? 30 seconds. I don't know. It's always the last 30 seconds that we talk.
Can I wait till right at 6?
I got 6 o'clock. We'll call the meeting to order. We'll start with the pledge of allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God,
indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I believe we don't have any adoption to the agenda, so I just need approval. Any further discussions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes 5-0-0. Accounts payable, Joan.
This month was pretty standard. Just call out a couple. Number 81343 for CETA was $9,172.17. That's just administrative services. And Minnesota Energy had 1068860 for $6,904. And that's just natural gas. All the rest were very normal. So if anyone has any questions, I'd be happy to answer. If not, I would make a motion to approve the accounts payable in the amount of $45,821.79.
I'll second that.
Any further discussion on accounts payable? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes 5-0-0. We'll open the public comment portion of this. Individuals may address the city council about any item of concern. Speakers must state their name and limit the remarks to 5 minutes. We will not take any comments concerning this ordinance at this time because we'll do that when we open the public comments of the ordinance portions. So does anybody have any public comments other than the ordinance? I will close the public comment portion and we'll jump to consent agenda. We just need a motion and a second to approve the minutes from the regular meeting of March 6th and the work session of March 13th.
I'll make that motion. I'll second that.
Any further discussions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes 5-0-0. Number 6, public hearing meetings. We'll discuss the resolution 2025-16, public hearing and modifications of the TIF increment financing. And I believe Keith is going to take that with Ellers.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the council. In front of you tonight is a resolution approving a modification to the project area, establishment of the TIF district, and approval of an interfund loan resolution. And I can go through all of those, but I thought it'd be first best to start with just a general overview with a high-level presentation of what is tax increment financing, what is the development that we're talking about, and going over some of the TIF plan items that you have in front of you tonight. So with that, Brian's going to be controlling the PowerPoint presentation here, so I'll just let him know when to change slides, but we can go on to the first one. As far as some background, this was a process that started back in April of 2024. The city partnered with a developer to submit an application to Minnesota Housing. It's a state agency that administers funds for housing projects throughout the state of Minnesota. They were specifically looking for a grant or some type of forgivable loan to help them with construction of an apartment project within the city. They were ultimately looking for a little over $2.8 million in funds for their project. Minnesota Housing requires that for every $2 that they award, the city has to match with a local match of $1. So with that, the city was looking at possible ways of providing that match. We talked about some fee waivers regarding SAC and WAC, which is sewer access charge, water access charge, but then also tax increment financing. because it is a vehicle to be able to capture new taxes that are generated from development to essentially give a rebate to the developer to help them achieve a reasonable return on investment. So with that, in October, Minnesota Housing did make an award determination, and they did end up awarding $2.8 million to this project. So that brings us to now with the TIF plan that is in front of you and everything that has led up to the culmination of this. We can go on to the next slide. As far as what is tax increment financing, we're specifically looking at the new value, the new taxes created once a project is constructed. The base value remains the same. Those taxes, we essentially have two buckets, and you can get, perfect. You have two buckets here of categories for property taxes. The first bucket is what the city is currently levying against the properties that exist today. Those taxes are still received by the city, and they go to the various taxing jurisdictions. They flow through the county to go to the school district, to the city, to other local taxing jurisdictions. The second bucket is from the new value that is built on top of that base value. And that is where the tax increment is generated over a certain period of time. And you're looking at providing a portion of that to incentivize the development at the end of the day. Now, I do want to be clear that the development is still paying property taxes on the full value that is being constructed. So they still pay their first half property tax in May. They pay their second half property tax in October. It's just the tax increment gets processed by the county and then distributed to the city with their first half settlement in June and July and their second half settlement in December, so that you end up making a rebate payment to it with a portion of the tax increment generated to the developer in ultimately August and then the following February. So with that, we can go to the next slide. The TIF plan in front of you tonight, it goes through a bunch of things that are required under state statute to be able to approve a TIF district. We need to know what is the city's statutory authority to be able to create this. What are the objectives? What are we ultimately trying to achieve with creating a TIF district and using that tax increment for the benefit of the community? What type of TIF district are we creating? This specific TIF district is called a redevelopment TIF district. And there is a report that is also included in the TIF plan that goes over the requirements to be able to create a redevelopment TIF district. There's two specific requirements that we're looking at. First, there has to be a structurally substandard building on the property that essentially requires removal. We're looking at what is the cost to bring that building up to current city code today, building code today. And if that cost exceeds a certain threshold of essentially building a new structure, same square footage, same style of building, if that's over a certain threshold, that means that the building is blighted. It does not necessarily mean that the building is hazardous for public health or anything like that. It's just a threshold in statute to say, based on the age of this building, based on the improvements that need to be completed to get it up to building code today, this is considered a blighted building, and it would signify some type of redevelopment can happen on this property. The second requirement that we're looking at is called a coverage test. And so 70% of the parcels that are going to be included in the TIF district need to be covered by something, whether it's a building, a parking lot, a gravel lot, some type of physical infrastructure. It could also be underground storage tanks or stuff like that. So the report that's included in the TIF plan identifies that you meet both of those requirements to create a redevelopment TIF district. As far as what's being proposed on the properties to be included in the TIF district, it is a 38-unit market rate apartment project with an estimated market value in concert with the county assessor. It'd be anywhere from $4,750,000 to $5.5 million. The maximum duration of a redevelopment TIF district is 26 years. Certainly cities do not have to go the full 26 years. You can provide over a certain period of time. Ultimately, TIF districts are required to decertify once your obligations from the TIF district have been satisfied. If that happens in year 5, you would have to decertify it at that time. And the value that was created from that new project would now be on the tax base and flowing to the various taxing jurisdictions as property tax revenue. If that's 10 years, 15 years, 26 years, you're looking at what are the obligations within the TIF district, when are they satisfied, and then you close it down. If you can go to the next slide to show a location of where this property is located, where this TIF district is located. It's right off of the intersection of 68 and 58. We're really looking at the TIF district inside of the project area. When we talk about tax increment financing, you need to create a project area in order to create a TIF district. So you can have multiple TIF districts within the project area, but with this one, there is only one TIF district, and I believe the city has 1 or 2 other TIF districts. So rather minimal when we look in the grand scheme of what is the current tax base, what is the current tax capacity of the city, and you look at as a comparison of properties that are included in a TIF district. We did have this conversation at the EDA meeting yesterday, and a question came up about, well, what is our tax capacity of the city, and what is the tax capacity that's contained within a TIF district? So your percent of tax capacity that is captured within TIF districts is 1.47%. So certainly from my perspective, if you get up closer to that 10% mark, that's where we need to do some further evaluation to understand what is being impacted by not collecting these tax revenues from this new development. What other services might be impacted? Is this increasing taxes for residents elsewhere? Certainly you're well below that, and I realize that every community has a different threshold with how much is included in a TIF district is too much. But I would say the city of Zumbrota is definitely on the lower end of all the cities that have TIF districts, being below that 1.5% threshold. You can go to the next slide. Now, I also want to talk about not everything is included in tax increment financing. We know that tax bases are not included, but there's also market value taxes that are excluded from the calculation of TIF. These are voter approved referendums. So if the school district goes out for an operating referendum, that portion is still being paid by this development, by the new development that's being constructed. That is excluded from the calculation of tax increment. Because this is a residential project, they're not going to pay statewide taxes, and because we're in Zumbrota, you're not paying fiscal disparities that the metro is subject to. But all of those things are not included in tax increment financing. Ultimately, when we talk about property taxes being paid, if you look at $1 property tax, you may be generating around 70 to 80 cents on that dollar of tax increment. That's just general. If it's commercial, it's going to be a little bit lower. It's going to be right around that 40 to 50 cents on the dollar, just because there's additional taxes associated with commercial versus residential. If you can go to the next slide. Included in the TIF plan is the sources and uses, and these are identified in the TIF plan based on statutory guidance that they have to be in maximum dollar amounts. So over a 26-year period, assuming an annual appreciation on this project over time, assuming an interest rate appropriate for time value of money, we come up with the amount of tax increment that could be generated over the maximum duration. Even if the city, even if the EDA doesn't intend to give 26 years of TIF to a project, you still have to prepare the TIF plan in that way. So that's what these numbers reflect. We show that over 26 years, this development may generate a little over $3.8 million of tax increment financing. The interest component there is what we think, if the city invests the funds that they have available, what they're going to get back on those investments. And that is calculated over a 26-year period. You are not giving 100% of the tax increment to this project. You are only giving a portion of them. You get to retain up to 10% for administrative costs and operating expenses that are incurred of the city by this TIF district, by TIF districts within your project area. The uses go over what we expect the tax increment is going to be used to pay for. And so you see that we have land acquisition, we've got construction. I realize it says affordable housing, but that is technically market rate housing. We have administrative costs up to 10%. Because we take into account the time value of money, and the city is not expecting to provide the developer any upfront cash, you're not issuing any debt to provide any funds upfront to the developer for construction of this project. The developer is essentially going to take this TIF note that is ultimately issued to them at the end of the day to go secure financing through a lender. So that's where this interest component on the uses is coming in. It's what they're ultimately having to pay for to get cash today through a private institution to get the costs needed, or the cash needed for costs of construction. So we can go on to the next slide. As far as the process that brought us here to now, we had the initial application submitted to Minnesota Housing in April of last year. And TIF districts, at least for the establishment, getting to the public hearing, it usually takes about 45 to 60 days. In that time frame, there are several notices that have to go out to local taxing jurisdictions. So you send a county commissioner notice before you even start the process to let the county know that you are considering creating a TIF district. You also, once you have a draft TIF plan prepared, you send that with fiscal impacts to the county and the school district, and they can review it to have any questions answered prior to the public hearing. They're also invited to come to the public hearing if they want to listen to any public comment or have any specific concerns that they want to address with the council. You have the public hearing, which we have duly scheduled tonight, and where we take public comment. The EDA is a recommending body for the city, and they did approve recommending establishment of this TIF district yesterday. And then ultimately, after the public hearing closes, you consider the resolution in front of you tonight for approval. As far as next steps, we're still in negotiation with the developer for the amount of public assistance and the means for which it's going to be provided to them. Approval of the TIF plan is the mechanism to be able to provide the incentive, the financial assistance to this project. It's not the means. The development agreement, once the negotiations are finalized, will be brought back to the city council for approval. That's anticipated to happen sometime in April. Based on conversation with the developer right now, it's probably going to be the second meeting in April, but that is to be determined yet. It could carry over into May, just depending on how the back and forth goes with the city's attorney and the developer's attorney. So with that, I can pause there and turn it back over to the mayor for any questions that he or the council may have for me.
First, before I open to the public, if they have any comments, does council have any questions or comments on this? I know I sat through it last night on the EDA board, so we answered some questions. There were some good questions there. Joan and I were part of that, so we've kind of seen that.
This is the second for me on the
So does
understanding of it.
council have any questions or concerns? I know we've talked about this TIF for a few times over the last year, so I think some of the questions have been answered, so.
You explained it very well. Thank you.
Anybody else have any questions?
I think I got about this inner loan or whatever. What is that?
Yep, great question. So the interfund loan is essentially a safeguard for the city. It's a way for you to spend money upfront that you might incur before the TIF district is established, before it starts generating any tax increment, so that you can reimburse yourself plus interest for those costs. So you're essentially borrowing from yourself to pay yourself back with tax increment financing.
Council?
Really, we're not anticipating any upfront costs. Keller Barton had put up money ahead of time to cover all the upfront costs back when we started this a year ago or whenever it was. So we're not anticipating anything, but this is a safeguard just in case we have to spend some dollars for whatever reason. Then we can get reimbursed or reimburse ourselves out of that.
Any more questions, council? Open this to the public. If public has any comments on this, yes, sir. State your name and your address, please.
Steve Grote, and I've got 3 questions.
Excuse me, I need to have you come up, or I can bring the microphone back there. I'll just run this thing
I
around.
can talk loud enough.
That'll be, well, we gotta be able to, the people online, you can talk loud, if you talk loud now, I'll just hold it.
Okay. I have 3 questions. First of all, who takes care of the utilities on this? Puts them in, I know they're gonna have to be upgraded. Who's paying for that?
The developer will be paying for that,
All of it?
all of it.
No city money?
To my understanding, correct.
Okay,
And
that's-
Brian,
Yeah, that's correct. That's, we went into this and with the knowledge that we really don't have money to put towards it. I told the developer that you have to handle whatever needs to be handled with this project. So that's what we're going in with.
All right, then, second of all, why are we contemplating a 26-year TIF increment? I mean, the developer is going into this to make money, correct? What is the city getting out of it?
Yeah, the city is getting 38 units, 3-bedroom units, some 3-bedroom, some 2-bedroom units. We're getting more housing. We are just ahead of the big expansion down at Mayo. There's gonna be people looking for places to live. So we have a bunch of people living right downtown, shopping downtown, and all of that goes with it. We are also still collecting the same taxes we would have collected if there was nothing there.
What are the people living in those homes or apartments going to pay for taxes? They pay no property taxes.
Their property taxes are included in their rent. It's just like any place else, if you rent, at the end of the year, you get a CRP, certificate of rent paid. So those property taxes are calculated into the rent by the developer who will run that. So they do pay property taxes, but it is included in their rent.
Okay, I guess that's it.
Thank you. Perfect.
These are things that we all should know.
Absolutely, appreciate the questions.
Any more comments concerning the TIF district?
I hate to talk in front of people, but I have to do this. I'm Beth Holes, I live on 12th Street. He asked what the city is getting out of this. I would like to know what it's gonna cost me.
that's a good question. So through establishment of a TIF district, we have to go through a but-for test. But for the public assistance, would this project happen? And so Ellers, the financial advisor, I'm the financial advisor of the city. So what we do is we collect the development information from the developer, their sources and uses, their operating budget, and we look at their 15-year cash flow. We don't want them to be unduly enriched with public assistance. So we're specifically taking a look at, with the TIF that's being requested, what is their return on investment? Is that reasonable based on other projects within Minnesota and Wisconsin that are also requesting public assistance? And so we essentially answered yes, and this was discussed at a prior city council meeting.
What is it gonna cost me as a taxpayer? I don't need to hear all that.
Yeah, nothing, because we're only
It's not gonna cost me anything at all.
we're only looking at the taxes generated by this development to pay the incentive.
The taxes generated by this development. The taxes that will be paid on that property is what it is now. The property tax on that property will not change.
Well-
Until 25 years from now.
Right, so the base value is still going to the local taxing jurisdictions. It's
So
the,
maybe they're paying, $7,000 a year for that property for the next 25 years. And we continue to pay the taxes that we pay. We don't save any money there. Ours is gonna increase. But no more money is coming into the city for the taxes or the county for the taxes. Because they're still gonna be paying $7,000 or whatever many dollars a year for 25 years. Yes or no?
yes, property taxes.
But don't their property taxes still go increase like everybody else percentage wise? So if ours goes up 5%, theirs will go up 5%. It's not like it's,
Property?
the property does.
Okay, and we don't see that for 25 years, so.
No,
I'm not gonna be here in 25 years, I don't
Okay,
care. how
okay,
much
Bev.
I'm gonna get then.
It does increase. We see that every year. Just like yours increased 5%, theirs will increase 5%, correct? Am I saying that right?
Theirs
So we'll
meaning-
see that.
Meaning the value of it right now,
You're correct.
not the value of it in 10 years when it's built and it's.
You're correct on that.
Okay.
But it also too is that's a tool for the city to help us bring in housing and other,
I get that
and
part.
bring all that spending. If we don't do this TIF or offer this TIF, we don't get this apartment complex and we don't grow as a city. So that is a tool for the city to bring developments in. We have a list of 15, 20 different businesses that have used the TIF district or a TIF to get that business in. What are some of them that, we had a list, right here's the list. There's 15, 20 that we've used the TIF to bring businesses in our town to let it grow and bring other money into it.
And I think the important thing to realize is your taxes are not increasing because of this. Your taxes might increase because we have to increase taxes to keep things paying
They're
for
paying the
things.
same amount to the schools as they do now, not, the schools are still getting what they should be getting now, right? That's not gonna come back at all. Okay, because that's a priority for me.
Yes.
Yeah.
Agreed.
I have a question. Hi, I'm Gina Conkey. What is the average, like you said, 26 years? Is it usually every city does 26 years? Or what is the average for cities? Is it a lot less?
Yes.
I'll answer part of it is what the project is. Usually housing, I think I'm correct on this, correct me if I'm wrong, housing, it usually is closer to the 26. When some of these other TIFs have been 5 or 6 because of what it's spread over. Am I correct on that, Keith?
You're correct. In today's market environment, with the construction cost increase that we've seen over the last 3 years, with the higher interest rates, in order for projects like a market rate project or even an affordable project to go forward in today's market environment, if that's a priority of the council, they most likely will need some level of assistance to move forward. I can say statewide, the average term of a TIF district is about 16 to 17 years. But now there's some that might go the full 26, but there's some that may be decertified within 6 or 7 years.
Because it's already generated the obligation.
Yes, Kim?
Keith, am I wrong?
I'm thinking that if we meet the obligation of, I can't remember the exact amount we're paying back. So say we meet that in 18 years and we pay them back, we can decertify the TIF district and it's done.
Yeah, you are required to decertify it.
So if they pay back sooner, it's done. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
I'm just wondering, if the medium is 16 years, why don't we go with that instead of 26? I mean, once it's paid for, the city itself generates that tax money, not the contractor, correct?
Yes, I think there's a lot of different variables, because if we do 26 and they satisfy in 16, we can close it out and be done. But if we do 16 and they need 22 to do it, we can't redo it then. So it's better to go higher and work it lower.
If you're trying to go in front to quash anything happening, say, in that 22 years or whatever it is, in case they run into some difficulties, is that what I'm?
And I think part of it's cost too, is what you said, is why we do it 26, because of the cost is so high.
I mean, specifically regarding the TIF plan, cities are required to adopt TIF districts and TIF plan with the maximum in mind. So that's why the plan is over 26 years, but that's not necessarily the means that's going to be provided to the developer.
Any more questions on the TIF district? Yes, sir.
So let's say this property they're buying is worth 50, 100 grand. Taxes are 7 grand. They put $1 million building on it. Will their taxes increase to that $1 million stage, or they gotta be at that 7,000 until the TIF is done?
Yeah, you have the two buckets. So the base value taxes that are being collected still go to the jurisdictions. That new value is where the tax increment is coming from. And so the portion that the city agrees to with the developer would be rebated back to them. So they're still paying their property tax on the full amount. It's just the rebate from that tax increment comes at a later date. You're essentially, I would say the analogy is you're planting a seed today.
Building, do they get a break on their taxes, or do they have to pay taxes on $1 million building? That's what I'm saying. Does it, you know, if it's only worth 100 grand now, but they put a building on it, now it's worth $1 million, well, the taxes on 100, taxes on $1 million, which one are they gonna pay?
They pay taxes on the million.
Okay, that's what answer my question.
Not for the 26 years.
Yeah, they pay taxes, whatever their taxes are, they pay, and then we reimburse the TIF part of
He
that.
just said to me that the property tax would be the same for 26
What
years.
we receive.
That's what we
What we
receive.
end up with will stay the same, because they get the difference. But they pay the increased taxes, and then we give them the TIF portion, which is the difference. Remember the two buckets that he showed up there?
Yeah.
That one. So they get the purple box back each year, but they keep paying increased taxes like everybody else. And that's how a TIF district is satisfied in less years. If taxes go up more for a long time, they're getting more back, but we're never gonna have more than what was set out in the TIF plan to them. So it
So
could,
you're
it
saying
could,
it's the same, we would be getting the same amount in taxes as we are now?
yep, $5,000 or $7,000.
Okay.
Kim?
I think a very easy way to
Think of it as if they're paying $3,000 in taxes right now. And they build a building, and I'm just gonna make it small numbers because it's easy. And they build a building and now they have to pay $10,000 in taxes. The $3,000 still goes to the school, the city, and the county, which basically is split in three. They're pretty evenly taxed. The $7,000 will be reimbursed back to the developer. Now, if they don't pay their taxes, which has happened for a year, maybe with a TIF district in the past, then they don't get their TIF payment. And their interest can, you know, so they have to pay it to get it. It's not just a check we write every year when the tax settlement's good. They have to pay their taxes to get it. So if they were in arrears of their taxes, they wouldn't get a TIF payment. So I,
Extra money in there would go to the county or whatever, not necessarily to the city, but it'd still be paid to our county.
yes, they have to pay it to the county, just like our regular property taxes that we pay in town. But they'd get the 7,000, the city, the school, and the county would get the 3. Does that make sense?
Except for one thing.
Yes, Bev?
The renters that get the rebate from it, are they gonna be paying part of the property tax?
That's always, every rent on every house that anybody pays, the landlord is required by law to tell them what their portion of the property taxes
But
are.
if they aren't paying much in property tax, why would the people living there have to pay?
They're paying their property taxes, it's just included as part of the
But it's a small
TIF.
amount, so then the people that rent from them will have to pay just a small amount.
Keith, can you weigh in on that? Because I'm not certain on that.
I mean.
I don't want to pay property tax. If I have to end up living there because I can't stay in my own home, I don't want to pay property tax to cover ridiculous amount if I'm living in a place that's only paying taxes. You know, understand what I mean?
Mhm.
I mean, they're not going to pay a large amount until 25, 26 years. Okay, so if they're only being assessed at whatever amount that is valued at now, then my portion of taxes should be in proportion to that, right?
But there's the new value on top of it. So the developer is still paying all of the property taxes. It's just the county breaks it up. Okay, 3,000 gets distributed to the local taxing jurisdictions. 7,000, a portion of that is rebated back to the developer. That's to help them achieve their reasonable return on investment.
Okay, but what about the rent rebate? Where does that come in for the people that live in there?
They get the rent rebate off of the total amount. The total property tax, the total 10,000.
So what, not the value that it is now, right?
Correct.
Value that it will be when it's complete?
Correct.
I'll just hold it over here. It'd be loud enough.
So aren't they supposed to recuperate that from their rent that they are being paid? Why do we have to give them $7,000 a month to help them pay for the building that they're getting a rebate on from the taxes that are being paid and the rent that they're paying on the building? That makes absolutely no sense to me whatsoever.
Well, and
You're just paying them to build a building on that property. In my mind, the only two people that are making anything out on this is Franson Bank and the contractor. Not the city of Zumbrota, not the people in Zumbrota, the contractor and the bank. Now, you tell me if I'm wrong.
Part of bringing an apartment complex, all these residents, the 38 apartments are gonna be buying gas, buying groceries, spending the shops, going to our park. They're all gonna, that all helps the city of Zumbrota to become a bigger and I'm talking, sir, please. That's why it's important for us to bring housing in, because it helps our community to grow and spend our money, their money in this town. If it's the grocery store, if it's the gas station, our little wonderful stores downtown, that's why it's important to bring housing into the city, in any city.
I understand that.
But obviously you don't right now.
no,
No, I'm having a real difficult time understanding why we should be reimbursing the contractor for him to have the ability and the privilege to build in our town.
That's part of what makes a city grow, is to doing stuff like that.
if I can interject here, so a contractor or developer is not going to develop if they can't rent their building out, right? If they want to rent their apartments. In order to get the rents where they need to be to rent out those apartments, that's where these type of tools come in, so that so they can build a building and keep the rents at a level that they can rent those apartments. And they want to keep their rents a little bit lower than the Southern Metro, lower than Rochester. We're going to draw people here. And this TIF and the grant that they got allows them to do that. Otherwise, if they built the building without any of that, the rents would be just unbelievable, and they would never rent the building out.
I'm Vicky Drexler, and I just want to say, I think it's a real positive thing for the city. And yes, it's gonna take some money to do it, but not everybody can afford a $500,000 house, and we need some affordable housing here. And if this is what it takes to get in there, I think it's great.
Because what are they classified, workforce housing?
Workforce housing.
Yeah, so it's not a low income, it's a workforce housing income base. And that's part of all this equation of doing that, is to make it a workforce housing. It's a workforce housing, so it's not Section 8. Yeah. That's what, they're going for the workforce housing based people. It's not Section 8, it's workhouse. So it's not people that can't go out and pay $3,000 for.
Value, not affordable.
Yeah, yeah.
Which, I mean, they're different, so market value. Okay.
That's right.
Just wondering what kind, has there been a study on like traffic flow? You're gonna add 38 units, is that correct? For the 38 units, so you've got a minimum of 38 cars, possibly 70 if they're 3-bedroom apartments, moving in and out of what's already probably arguably one or two worst intersections by Casey's to try and get on at a certain point of day. So there seemed to be kind of a hope and pray approach with the Caribou when we approved that. Like, is there a plan in place for the traffic flow? Has there been a study done on what that does to it? And then also, how does it affect the people on the backside of the Main Street businesses that are already using that to park and the apartments up above?
You want to take that, Brian?
Yes, so the developer is working with the county. The parking ramp is below the building, or the parking is below the building. So they're working with the county. It exits out onto 2nd Street, which is a county road. So they're working on the traffic stuff with the county. As far as the parking in the alley, there's going to be quite a bit of an increase in parking. They're going to pave the alley, curb and gutter, and they're going to have angled parking back there. Depending on how you look at it now, there's 8 or 9 viable spots, maybe more like 5 without using the neighboring property to park. And I think there are going to have 18 there. And those spots will not be designated. This is all part of the developers agreement negotiations. Those spots will not be designated as apartment parking. They will be available for everybody. So there's actually an increase in parking. The alley is going to be fixed up and very nice back there. All in all, it's going to be, it's shaping up to be a really nice project.
Any more questions concerning the TIF district? Yes, sir.
I would just like to know that we were talking about expanding. Where's all this expansion gonna take place?
What do you mean by that?
Take place?
First, can you state your name and your address, please?
Bryce
We have that on
Frederick,
record.
409 4th Street, Curtis. And I'd just like to know, we're talking about, expanding. Where's all this expansion taking place?
Without getting into a whole different politics right now,
No,
different things.
I'm not looking at politics.
But rephrase that. I have been involved with a couple other companies and same with, I can't remember who, Brian was there, our EDA director. We have a couple of companies coming in and looking at expansion of hotels and restaurants and stuff like that. It all takes time, it takes developers. So that's, if you want to talk about what we've done, I can, but I'm not going to open that up. But we've worked on other companies and other expansions of other commercial stuff in town. It takes time and it takes money to do that, so.
One reason I'm asking is, how far is this gonna go north, south, west, east? We gotta, if you're gonna build something, you have to have a property to put it on.
Correct. We have some other commercial properties out there that we can expand. There's other farmland that we can expand and annex in. But I don't have a crystal ball to explain that. Where they go.
Discussion, we're talking about a TIF district in downtown Zumbrota, bringing in 38 units of apartments.
Any more comments concerning the TIF district? I will close the public portion of this and open up the council for any more questions, concerns, and a motion on this. Yeah.
I'll make a motion to.
It's resolution, yeah.
Resolution, yeah.
I'll make a resolution?
No, it's a motion.
Take a motion on the resolution.
I'll make a motion to approve the resolution, is that right?
2025.
2025. 16. Oh.
I'll second that.
Any further discussions? All in favor?
Aye.
Nay.
Opposed? Oh, sorry. Bob?
Nay.
Joan?
Aye.
Kevin?
Aye.
Fred?
Nay.
And aye. Passes 3-0. Thank you on that. Okay, what was that?
3-2.
3-2, 3-2-0, yeah.
3-2-0, okay.
Yeah. Perfect. We'll open the public hearing concerning the ordinance 2025-02. I know most of you are here on this. I'm going to do a little bit of house cleaning or housekeeping on this topic, just to kind of, maybe we can answer some questions on this to where we're at today. The purpose why this got up in our code committee, we've been working on this for how long, Kevin? 6 months, 8 months?
Closer to a year.
To a year. And the reason we brought this up in the code committee, and part of that code committee is myself, a council member, the police chief, and 3 residents. Police chief has questions. Our police department, we get several complaints throughout the year on a lot of these topics. But our ordinance are old or older, and we're working on redoing them to make them more modernized. The chief has a tough time enforcing or dealing with these ordinances. So that's how this came about. So the code committee has been working on this for a year, looking at other avenues, other ordinances that are out there. So when the code committee finally put a revised ordinance on this together, that's when the city council was aware of it, and that's when the public was aware of it. So in the meantime, since the city and the public have been aware of it, we had a work session here, was it March 13th, I believe?
Yeah.
It was on a Wednesday, and we discussed this, and as council had a lot of questions, a lot of concerns that we need to address, which we've heard it, seen it. That's why we're here. We were going to just send this back to the code committee, but we couldn't because it was already publicized. It was already a public hearing. So like, let's get our public's input, but we already plan on sending it back because there's a few topics on there that we need to address on some different ones. But the main purpose, our police department has no way, when we get several complaints a year, it's very vague. It's hard for them to get anywhere. So that's why this topic came up. I guess I'll open it up to public comments. You have 3 minutes, state your name and location, we'll listen to it. The only thing that we ask you to be constructive and be respectful. When you're 3 minutes up, Miles will take the time, we'll cut it off and we'll move to the next person. If it becomes unconstructive or unrespectful, we'll shut you off and ask you to leave.
And please don't get up and say something somebody else has already said, because that just takes a lot of time. So if your comment has already been said, then please don't say it again.
So, yeah, so the council's been aware, we've already talked about it in a work session, it was pretty lengthy already. We don't agree with some of it. And then maybe we'll answer a couple questions as we go on of kind of what we're at. So I will open the public.
Can I just say one more
Yeah.
thing? So this is the process. This is in ordinance, how we do things. We created the code committee, which is citizen-led. And then we look at which ordinances have been a lot of complaints, tough to deal with, things like that. Several complaints about trailers and campers parked in the road all summer. Several complaints about neighbors looking out their window at the side of a camper for the last however many years. And we had no way to deal with that stuff. So the chief and the police department said, well, what do we do? Well, can't do anything. Is it something we should look at? Agreed that, yeah, it's something we should look at. So the code committee took it on, and it took a good year. And we did a lot of research, a lot of different ordinances from all over the place, consulted with our city attorney. But yeah, please note that it is the process. And so we followed the process, and like Todd said, the council becomes aware of it at first reading when everybody else saw it, because then we publish it. But they did the right thing. Council's acting exactly the way they should, and set the public hearing to bring in the public for comments. So that's how we got to where we are today. We're well aware that there's a few things in there that didn't come across the way we intended, and we'll listen to that tonight. We agree, and we're going to revisit it. But yeah, I think, go ahead, Todd.
And I think 2 comments that I just want to make quick that we know that we need to address, that's been an issue. Approved service and what's not approved service. And UTVs, motorized vehicles, was worded wrong in here. So them are 2 things that we need to address. I've also been questioned by a lot of the community. I've talked to a lot of the community about UTVs, golf carts, and then approved services. I mean, we all know there's a few properties out there now that we have issues, but that's why we're here. So I will open the public comments. Please come up here close to a mic. I think there's a round. State your name, your address, and your concerns. Yes, sir.
Thank you. I could bring it back to you too. Just.
My name is Steve Crow, 668 East 4th Street. And I guess I've dealt with this all my life. There's people that take care of their property, and there's people that don't. The people that don't are the ones that should be addressed. My way of thinking, you give them a 15-day warning, and after that 15-day warning, you write them a citation. They get another 15 days to clear it up, and every day after that last 15 days, they get assessed another portion of a fine. You just can't go out and blanket cover everyone, because I have a neighbor that has a really good spot to park his mobile home in. It's crushed rock, it's off the street, it looks good. The people that have got concrete slabs for their boats or their trailers, they have taken provisions to get it off the street and make it safe. So I guess that's my 2 cents. And other than that, I don't know what else you can do, but I think the people that are really, really messing it up and parking their stuff on the street are the ones that ought to be addressed. It's not the ones that have got campers in their backyards, because that is their property. They have bought it, they pay taxes on it, and they should not be victimized because they have it parked. You know, I'm sorry to the people that have to look at it, but that is their land. They pay property taxes on it, they paid for the house, they paid for that land. And if we all wanted to live in an HOA, we'd move. Thank you, Todd.
Yeah, thank you. A couple of things that I want to clarify that. I appreciate that. Our police department don't have any, our ordinance is so vague. So we're trying to make it less vague where we can deal with it when we have complaints that people call, like you described. So that's the purpose of this. And number 2, we're on a complaint basis only in the city. I'm not instructing my police department, I'm not instructing Brian, and I'm not driving around town picking out the problems. I'm not going to do that because we have better things to do with our time.
I realize that. So when a complaint is called in, then it should be addressed. And our police department should be given the authorization to do what I said.
And that's what we have, but our ordinance is vague, so they have no direction to do.
I'm not denying that the ordinance doesn't have to be changed, but it has to take some thought. So everyone that's doing their job shouldn't have to worry about the people that aren't doing their job.
And that's what we're doing. We're changing the ordinance, and just because we change the ordinance, I'm gonna pick on Camp because they got a camper, I'm gonna go pick on them now? No. I mean, that's, it's not doing that.
And I see that, I know that, believe me, I know.
I mean, so the purpose of this is to change the ordinance, so when we get complaint, the police department has somewhere to go with it. We're not gonna go after, we're not hunting it, we're not making an HOA, we just have to have some guidelines.
A guideline is good.
Okay, time, next comment?
Sorry, guys. Leonard Wood, 1255 East Avenue. I agree with Steve that private property is private. And if you don't like it, look that way. Don't look towards my property, please. I don't have it super junky, but I feel targeted a little bit by you guys. So we do park our camper on the street in the summer. I really want you to trot out your injured party. I'm not hurting anybody. It's licensed, it's insured, and I'm not blocking any signs. You know, I don't know. You guys, you got to pick what you're going to do. You don't enforce anything, then you get junkiness. But I get both sides of the argument, but I don't think I'm injuring anybody. And if I pulled it forward or pulled it back so someone looking out their window wouldn't see the camper, they'd see the front door of the house or the garage door. I don't understand. I didn't understand. I read it and I kept reading it going, I don't get it. What I park behind my house, Mox Nix, it doesn't have anything to do with anyone here. It just doesn't make factors. I have 4-wheelers. Scary. They're, I got them, they're licensed, they're, insured, like, all this stuff is taken care of.
There's people in town that have those, that don't have their stuff insured, they don't have it, and that's what we gotta deal with.
Can we get there without all this? Because this seems a little onerous. I'm just gonna say one more thing. Liberty. Just let people do what they want to do.
Yes, sir.
David Grimsrud is my name. Has anyone talked to you about, like I see in Pine Island, where you have private gated secure areas for parking RVs and so on? We don't have that in Zumbrota, do we? Has anybody talked to you about that?
We know of one that's talking about it
Because
right now.
it could be a solution. There may be some people that need that.
What?
No, it's just a thought. It's not uncommon to have places, people use the fairgrounds and so on. There's one thing about freedom, talk about freedom. You have easements or whatever, when I want to build a house, you're gonna set me so far off my neighbor, right? Why do you do that? Why don't you let them build right to the lot line?
Because we have utilities that we gotta run along the property lines.
I'm just saying, there's an argument being made for rules, and that's what this is about. I just threw that out about, I know of a guy that wants to develop a place for parking. You know, not city ownership, but private ownership. And that might be helpful to some people, like those that park at the fairgrounds.
Yeah. Thanks, Dave. You wanna go next?
Tricia Cash, I live in Zimbrota, Woodlands. First, I appreciate this. I think the police department needs to have a fair, clear ordinance when they get these complaints. They're stretched pretty thin, and I think that have some clarity on what they need to do would be helpful to them. I would like to know what the defined surface would include. What is the appropriate surface that we would need to have on our own property to park a camper or whatever. We do have a camper. It's been on our side of the garage for years. It's on the side of our garage. It's not on the street. I pay taxes on that property. And I don't want to be exactly told what I cannot have in my driveway or I can't have on the side of my house. So I'd like some clarification on, do we, is it concrete that we're going to have to pour, rock? What is going to have to happen to make it okay to have our camper there?
I think
just
as of right now, our
clarification.
approved service is concrete, blacktop, gravel.
Right.
Is kind of what we classify as approved surface.
And that's within other portions of the ordinance.
That's not stated. Like, it's not like.
Yeah, there's nothing, we don't know what the approved.
I think it's laid out somewhere in other ordinances. It's in the thing without pulling it up. But that's what approved services are.
Okay.
And we can lay that out, and them are the concrete, blacktop, gravel, pavers, something like that is what we mean, or what other topics are on approved services.
Thank you.
Oh my goodness. You wanna go? No, just kidding.
Just cut them off right now. Yes, ma'am.
Jan Beeford, 402 East 9th Street. I think there are a number of things that need to be considered. I know you've talked about you understanding this needs to be revised, so I would be interested in seeing the next draft. I agree with having people living, sleeping in a camper in city limits is an issue unless they are on, for example, the trailer court property. So that's where the public property sentence in letter D could be an issue. And I also agree with not parking in the street, because I think most of us have experienced obstructed view if people are parking in a spot that is, not conducive to being able to see the entire intersection. And when we talk about the size of the lot and looking out the window, then we need to consider what is the size of lot and is there a difference in what can happen on that lot then? That's my input. And I guess the ordinance people probably looked at the individual complaints, but I think it's important to focus on what the complaints are and then address those complaints and not go overreach. Thank you.
I mean, you're more than welcome to come to our code meeting. It's the third Tuesday every month to discuss that. Once we get a finalized draft, we'll probably be in the same boat we are today, doing another public hearing. But the bottom line is, I'm going to say this again, the purpose of this is our police department has no guidance on these stuff. We started here and it's a work in progress. And once we figure out what the ordinance's details, nothing's gonna change. It's probably gonna be the same complaints that we get every year that our police department now can focus on those and take care of them problems. Because I'll guarantee you, everybody here can think of 2 or 3 properties that we have problems with in this town. And that's probably what the only difference is gonna be. The police department's gonna have a better way to control it, ticket them, fine them, and whatever the procedures are. Another public comment portion.
I'm Jamie Johnson. I'm at 1255 East Avenue. My issue with the parking the camper, I live in the middle of a block. I have no way of getting to the back of my house. I have no way to build on the side of, excuse me, on the side of my driveway. I have a single car driveway. So I have no way to get to the back of my house by the size of my lot. I park my camper from the beginning of summer till the end of summer because I have nowhere else to put it. I store it in the winter. It's gone for the winter. I don't see why I need to move my camper every 72 hours because the cop shows up at my door and says, "You've got to move it. We had a complaint." Watch your own bobber, people. It's my camper. I'm not hurting anybody. I'm not parked in front of their house, on the corner. I'm right in front of my house. If somebody wants to see my front door, come on over. I'll show you my front door. Leave my camper alone. That's my issue. Why every 72 hours?
Like, it's something we're working, it's a work in progress.
I'm just voicing my thought on it.
I get it, I appreciate it.
I mean, I've done it. I'll hook it up, I move it, just to leave it alone. I mean, I'm not hurting anybody. Anybody.
Yes, sir.
Hello. Fred Tagan, 7 on East 4th Street. I am Steve Faber. Thank you, Steve. I guess in addition to what everybody else has said, so I don't want to repeat anything. I just gonna say I have good neighbors. I've talked to them all about our situation. Everyone's cool with it. And the next door neighbor are fine. It's like right in their face, but they're elderly. They're not gonna be there forever. I don't know who's gonna move in. The way I'm reading this, any person with an axe to grind can lodge a complaint. I mean, the way I read this, I'm in violation of pretty much everything on there.
Yeah.
So anyone with an axe to grind will be able to hold that over me or anyone else here that has similar situation. And I have no recourse other than to get rid of the camper or move. Because I'm not going to store it elsewhere in the summer when we use it. We store it all winter, it's gone, like last speaker said. And it's off the road, but like I said, it's not going to fit your criteria, and I just think it's way too much overreach. I didn't move into an HOA, and I never intend to, so I don't want one brought to me. So that's my thoughts.
Perfect. Thank you. Yes, sir.
Ryan Mokreski, 356 Warren Avenue. I guess one issue I've got with it is the 15-foot setback. A lot of people don't have driveway length to do that. You know, a lot of these vehicles are long. A lot of our driveways are pretty short, depending on how or when the house was built. You might not have the room. As far as that, you know, I'm not saying you shouldn't have some type of a setback if you're going to have a rule. But what I'll say is if we can downtown have buildings that are, I'm guessing 5-6 feet from the curb, you know, you can't see around these giant buildings. So why can't somebody park their camper, their RV, their trailer within whatever that setback is? Why can't that just be, this is the town setback? Versus because it's a camper, no, now you gotta park it an extra 10 feet back. You know, last year we already passed, or maybe even 2 years ago, you can't park within 10 feet of somebody's driveway without their permission. I think you're 20 or 30 feet away from a stop sign. You know, we've already got the public right of way open for safety. Parking within 5-6 feet of the curb, or let's say up to your sidewalk, does not pose a danger to anybody. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
And I'm going to sit. My name is Sandra Bryant. I live at 617 West 8th Street at the top of Warren Avenue. My husband and I moved to Zumbrota in 1999, and specifically we chose where we live because it does not have an HOA. We had a camper then, and we still have a camper now. Through several rounds of remodeling, we have actually created a paver driveway and a special paver spot next to our driveway for our camper. But it is in front of the front of our house. So it would definitely be in violation of this. And I consider that a problem. It is my driveway. There's never been a complaint. Mr. Peterman, are you worried about it?
I'll comment in a bit.
Okay. So he might be, but he's never said it to me yet. But I actually like it there. It actually provides both of us with some more privacy, extra privacy that we appreciate. And I will say, we have occasionally had people living in it for very short, well-specified time periods. And they've always been people working with our church. So they've been people who come in to do a choir concert. We've let them stay there. There was our soccer team, yes, they had British soccer coaches come in, they stayed there. And again, we never got any complaints. There might have been some issues, but we never got any complaints about it. And we would not allow them to be loud. I will state that right now. Do I want people living in there in the future? I have no idea. Probably not for an extended length of time. It would be for a very short time. So I just feel like right now, the way this is written, we'd be in violation of it. And we would have to consider, I think we would be considering moving and leaving Zumbrota. So there would be people that would end up leaving if this goes forward the way it's currently written. Thank you.
Kevin?
Make it short and sweet. I know a lot of things, we only get so much time. I think most of us with a brain understand that something has to be put in stone so these guys can figure out what to do. I mean, that's why we're here, I think. My personal opinion, I think there's two separate issues that we haven't really divided. I think street parking is different than using your personal property to park your vehicles, whatever, my opinion. So I think that might want to be addressed. I'm all for keeping stuff off the street more than 72 hours, whatever the magical number is. There are some places, I know I heard somebody say it's parked on the street. There's places in town where there are no sidewalks. You know, kids got to ride their bikes around them into the street and so forth. So like I said, I think there's two issues there. It was touched on, and Sergeant Tony just showed me there is, if you guys could put a link to the improved surface, I looked for it all day online, I couldn't find it. And he just showed me that it's in the city website someplace to see exactly what that is. 'Cause a lot of us don't want to be in violation, whatever you come up with, you know, and ours doesn't sit on and quote an improved surface. One thing I found kind of funny was it does state in here that no sleeping if it happens to be a camper in your camp. I thought that's a little overreach. It's under D, to be used for living, sleeping, or housing. I understand we don't want people living in people's yards in a camper. We all get that. If my kid wants to spend the weekend or have her friends over and spend the night in the camper, they can't sleep in the camp. Can we still set up a tent in the front yard? I mean, that I think needs to be addressed. I'd be a liar. We have a senior in high school. I know it'll get used as an extra bedroom when people come for open house for a night. You know, we all don't have multi-bedroom homes. So something to consider. I noticed I didn't see any setbacks as far as side to side on your property. Where can you put an improved surface right up to your line? Is it the same setback as your dwelling? Something to clarify for us.
Yeah, very good question. We did talk about that because right now you are not supposed to park anything within 5 feet of the property line. With this ordinance, that is too restrictive. We understand that. If we're going to ask anybody to do this and park next to their garage, we're up to the property line.
So you can have an improved surface up to the property line.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Cameron, can you state your name and your
I'm
address for
sorry,
us, please?
717, Cameron Cash, 717 Stratford Drive here in Zebrota. Yeah, we've touched on that. I mean, you alluded to maybe some of the verbiage needs to be changed. I think if somebody owns a golf cart, they ought to be able to park it in the driveway. I think that's kind of ridiculous, but,
And like I said, the UTV is one that we know that definitely needs to be
say
addressed.
that, that's why we won't rehash that. Little out the issue, but I don't want to be careful because I don't have their permission to use anything, but I have good friends that live close to us who happen to be police officers. They have multiple vehicles. They park them in their front lawns to get out of the way of the snowplows in the winter. I'm appreciative they do that. I'm appreciative of what they do for a living and keep me safe. I think we want to be careful where we draw a line. I mean, I think we all know what we're trying to do. We're trying to keep the city clean with reasonable expectations, so those guys have something to fall back on. So.
And that's exactly the purpose of it.
My last question, when, if things are adjusted, relooked at, will there be a public meeting again with that?
I would assume so.
That's-
Council
Thanks for your
desires a
time.
public meeting.
Yeah. I mean, like you said, it took us a year to get this far. Obviously, it should have took us 2 years because.
I don't envy you.
So, like you said, we're working on it, and I appreciate everybody's comments, and I appreciate everybody being constructive and respectful. Any more public comments? Yes, Paul?
Paul Peterman, 805 Warren Avenue. I completely support what the council's trying to do. Completely support that. As Cameron just stated, everybody knows there's a lot of areas to clean up. I think one thing that hasn't been talked enough about, though, is safety. And with what the code committee's kind of put together with the setbacks, I think really the idea behind that is about safety. Because if you have a camper right up to the road or impeding vision, that is a safety issue. And it only takes one time for something to happen to a kid, somebody on a scooter, trike, whatever, and we're gonna say, my God, why didn't we should have addressed that. So I support what you're doing. I do think there needs to be definitely some updated ordinance on that. You know, we have great neighbors next to us. We do have the Bryants who have a camper. We've never said anything over the years. We've just tried to be good neighbors, but I do think it's time that we get consistency in the city. I do think we need to focus on safety, and we do need to start cleaning things up. And I understand the position that the officers are in, because that is, Tony, Pat, love you guys. Just don't want your job. Thank you.
Thanks, Paul. Any more public comments? Yes, ma'am. I got her coming up first.
My name is Janet Nicholson and I live at 906 South Main Street. I live on Main Street and I live like kind of right where the road goes up, and I also have a camper. So I understand like the reasoning behind an ordinance like that. I misunderstood what the point of this meeting was, so I went a little crazy and I looked up other cities with ordinances, and most of those cities, with the exception of Elko New Market, have populations greater than 30,000 people. Their parking restrictions are around safety. I know you guys said you had 3 people complaining, and if it wasn't a complaint about safety and it was a complaint about beautification or whatever, I mean, you guys are city council members, so I'm sure complaints are foreign to you guys. I mean, they're not, but you know, I mean, so if somebody's complaining about a camper because of beauty, I mean, there's so many other things that I mean, are we gonna start picking on people for signs and flowers and fences and stuff like that? So most of this, they have, if you can park in your driveway, there's 5 feet setbacks. Most of them have seasonal use parking. Right-of-way corners, 20 feet, 10 feet, not blocking businesses, not blocking public roads. There are limitations on sizes, and that's safety. I mean, I know, like, even in the winter when somebody, you know, I live right on that crosswalk where there are kids and high school students and walking. I know that sometimes if cars are parked on 9th Street, it's difficult to see. So I understand, like, if you're telling me I have to do a 20-foot setback from the sidewalk or from that street for safety, I get that. But also, I mean, I store my camper in the winter. I have it out during the summer because, I mean, sometimes I don't want to drive out to the middle of nowhere to pick up my camper because I want to go camping. And it's, I mean, some people probably think it's an eyesore, but it's my eyesore. And it's not unsafe. I have a call if you want.
You know what, I just elected you for the next code meeting for the next 6 months. It's the 3rd Tuesday of every month.
I mean,
you have great ideas. You have great ideas. That's what we need.
For that, I didn't know you guys had code meetings. And you might be careful what you wish for, because.
Already got you something. We only hold it to an hour, so.
Yeah, but I do, like, I mean, there were 11 cities that I found that have driveway camper ordinances.
Your time's up, so.
Yeah.
Okay. Perfect, but I'll see you next month.
Can I just add a couple of comments?
Yeah.
Those are very good, and
Great idea.
speaking on behalf of the code committee, because I'm at the meetings, I do the minutes and all that. They did extensive work on size, because there's a lot of ordinances out there that regulate the size of a camper and then where it can be, and we wanted to simplify it. They wanted to simplify it as much as possible, and we came up with what we came up with. But the comments about looking at the setback distance and all that, absolutely, that's what came to light when we spoke with council too, was we need to look at that a little bit closer. So great comments, and just know that the code committee did extensive work on all of that, and there was a lot of ordinances that they looked at, sizes, locations, setbacks, you name it, but happy to go revisit it again, and thank you for good comments. Not that we have to be done, but.
Yes, Kyle.
Kyle Canetta, 209 Golden Bear Lane, Zumbrota. I'm not going to take a lot of time. I doubled down on everything Cam said. I think there's 2 different issues here. I think we got on-street parking. What I park in my driveway that I'm paying property taxes on, I don't think is the city of Zumbrota's business. Setbacks, people building new construction homes. I'm also a realtor in town. You can go as little as 6 feet on the garage side. Are we correct on that?
Yeah, 5 or 6, yep.
When you're building, you can go as little as 6 feet. Most campers are 7 feet wide. You are eliminating any chance, even if you have your garage sitting there and you go 6 feet, you can't even physically get a camper in there. So that's not even an option. So the next best option, I feel, is in my driveway. Again, I'm not gonna double up on stuff. If my kids have a sleepover and they wanna sleep in my camper, I don't want, I appreciate where you guys are at. I feel like a lot of us are upset that we're getting punished for the sins of 5 or 6. I'm not gonna we all know who they are. I represent clients that try and sell those houses in those neighborhoods, and it's frustrating. They don't want to look out, so I appreciate it. I would like to get them cleaned up as well. That's my 2 cents. Keep them off the streets. I don't want my neighbor's yard looking like a car lot. If it's grass, I don't think there should be stuff parked on it. But if people have a concrete pad, if they have gravel, if they have blacktop, I say let them use it. That's my 2 cents. Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.
Any more public comment? Any more public comment? Yes, ma'am.
Oh, here, you stay there, I'll wait. No, you go. No, you go ahead. I'll wait.
We'll bring the thing to you.
Yeah. I'll come back here, we get close.
Oh, I can come up there. Because what I have to say isn't, it's basically, a question and a comment. I hope this isn't being filmed.
It is.
Because I'm making, of myself. Okay, I have a 34-foot motorhome, and I park it on my driveway in the summer. And it's locked, so it can't roll. And my brakes and everything work properly. But I'm just trying to figure out, is there an issue with seeing around this? I mean, it's quite a ways off the road. I don't park it in the road only when we're going on vacation, because I need to level it for the refrigerator and hook the boat up. So it's a maximum of 12 hours. And the same when we get home. But it seems like when I heard about the 72-hour part, even if it's in your yard. Why? That's my yard. I put the cement down. I pay the taxes. It's insured. And I pay a hellacious license on it. And it just doesn't seem fair. We're retired. And we don't move as fast as we did 20 years ago. So it's nice to have it close. But I guess if I have to, I will put a pad in back where I can park it, if push comes to shove. But I have asked my neighbors when I got it, when I put it up in the yard, I said, do you have a problem with it? No, no, and no. And I said, I won't run my generator, only to check it. So it's what I'm trying to get over here is that I have reached out to my neighbors and said, do you have a problem? And they were very kind and they said no. It's all it does is block some of our neighbor to the south. And that's it. I mean, it's just their house. So they can't see my door and I can't see the garage door. That's it. But
I don't want it stored off-site. No way.
Okay, we got time. Thank you.
Can I?
Okay.
Can I just follow up on that? So, well, first of all, we're not saying you can't park it anywhere on your land. The ordinance is saying that there's areas where you can. Probably going to change based on comments. And also, the reason for the ordinance is to give the code enforcement officers some standing in helping with someone who doesn't want to look at that camper. You have neighbors that are not going to complain. Well, you're not going to get caught up in this. You're going to be fine. But in the instance that someone doesn't, is tired of looking at that camper for all these years, sticking way out in front of the house, there's no way to even have them. So, we're kind of discounting those people. And not that we're going to put it in place but that's kind of the background of this, having something for the code enforcement officers that, okay, if there's a complaint, and I've heard neighbors don't mind, oh, it's fine. But some neighbors do mind. And we can't do anything if there's a complaint. So it gives a little bit of and however it shapes up, however restrictive it is or is not, at least then we'll be able to give some direction to, okay, this is how to handle that. And yes, you don't just have to live with it, that type of thing. So anyway, that's kind of the thought behind it.
I'd just like to add, I pull it up to the garage just enough so I can get my cadet out. And it's not blocking the street, or it's not blocking any side around the corner. So with that, okay, thank you, gentlemen and ladies. Don't call me sir, for Christ's sake, we're related.
Heavy on the sir.
Laura Mokreski, 356 Warren Avenue. So I guess a lot of what I was going to say has been covered by others. Personally, I don't think someone parking an RV, a boat, trailer, anything in their own driveway really matches the definition of a public nuisance, which is something that's like against the health, safety, or morals of the community. So I think that's a bit of an overreach. I can understand. I talked to one city council member who said that they're trying to work with properties where RVs have been parked so long that trees are growing up around them. But there's a huge difference between 72 hours and the time it takes for trees to grow. Personally, I think it should be amended to 10 days or similar as far as the street parking. I think the driveway and people's own property, approved surface, that's fine, but I don't think we should be restricting further than that. I did want to point out a few other things that people didn't point out on the ordinance. I appreciate the work that the code committee has done on this, but I think because they've been pulling from so many different city ordinances, they needed to step back and look at this as a whole, because I think there's some things that they didn't mean to imply that they are here. So like, for example, it says you can't operate a recreational or specialty motor vehicle on publicly owned land, including school grounds, park property, playgrounds, or except where permitted by this section. This section never permits anything, so therefore we shouldn't be having campgrounds in our park, we shouldn't have snowmobiles in our parks, things like that. So something's missing there. They either needed to add a section about the park or take out this section that restricts it. It also says you can't operate them on any public street, highway, or right-of-way unless licensed by the city. This implies that the city is now going to be in the business of licensing RVs, trailers, boats. I understand they have a licensing process for golf carts and ATVs, but the other city council or city ordinances that I found that a lot of this was kind of taken from said pursuant to Minnesota law, not licensed by the city. And that makes a lot more sense because obviously the state licenses RVs, trailers, things like that. So I really think they just needed to step back and look at this and how does this work for our community. I also agree with others who said that, the phrase about sleeping in your camper is probably an overreach. Personally, I think that the 72 hours I know this council likes to use when we were talking about the grasses ordinance and everything last year, that would be completely appropriate for someone to be sleeping or living in a camper some kind of 72 hours or maybe a 1 week time frame, I think it's totally fine. As others have said, if they have guests staying on their property, for a few nights, I don't see how that's harming anybody. And personally, I would just strike, as I said, the driveway part of that. My other questions have to do with.
Please, thank you. Any more public comment? Any more public comment? State your name and your address, please.
My name is Gordon Zell, 203 Aqua Drive. I honestly can't believe we're wasting this much time on a subject like this when we got more pressing matters. You guys were talking about safety. Our main street is probably one of the most dangerous streets I've ever been around. You can't even come off a side street and pull out without damn near getting hit every day. And now we're pressing about somebody parking a camper next to their house. I mean, that's pathetic, guys. It really is. I mean, start worrying about Main Street. Let's put some stoplights up. How many people have gotten hit at those intersections?
Well, to talk about Main Street, that's a state road. We fight that all the time. We fight that all the time. So,
And we
I
can't
mean,
get anywhere
you
with
can't
it?
say we have not dealt with that issue because we agree that's a hazard all
Kind of
the
like what the
time.
lady said earlier, though. People need to mind their own bobber. There's better things to think about. I mean, honestly, you want your cops going around worrying about people parking their goddamn camper in front of their house?
Cops won't go around. It's a complaint basis only.
No sense.
Thank you. Any more public comments?
I just,
State your name and address, please.
I'm Ellis Benson, 349 Aqua Circle. Okay, I've worked all my life for the things I've bought. And what I feel this is you say I can't park my property on my property. That's unfair.
Any more public comments?
Sorry.
Yes, sir.
Howdy, Graham Ketterling, 629 Stratford Drive. I think everybody, I shouldn't even sit, I just have a brief thing. People kind of already covered what I was gonna say, but I just to address we're getting a reassurance that it will only be complaint-based. Well, I think that's kind of a lot of people's issue is that we don't want it to be in the people who complains power to enforce those rules. You know, I would just say that that's not really a consoling fact that, well, don't worry, it's just gonna be up to these people who have issues with this type of thing. It's like, well, we don't want it up to them. We don't want it up to them what's in our property. So that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Any more public comment? I will close the public portion of this. Yes, sir.
Step up to the mic. My name is Alex Johnson. I live on 1182 West Avenue, right? I'm not denying that this order is not to have good intentions on it. I think it's a good thing to have in some sense. But I totally agree with it being the simple, right? This can't be simple. This has to be defined, especially if this is getting built or made, is coming about because to give our officers something to go by, right? It has to be defined when we start talking about campers and ATVs and all that stuff, right? I don't have a camper, but I do have boats, I do have trailers, I do have that kind of stuff in my driveway. Unfortunately, I'm off the road quite a little bit on a somewhat of a dirt road. But if it's a complaint base, and we definitely need to have some definition behind it. If you're gonna complain, have your facts in stone if you're gonna complain, and give it something for our officers to actually go against.
Thank you. We'll close it. Yes, sir.
Hi, I'm Dave Chalberg. I live on 724 West 3rd Street. And we got to remember that this here is America, and you can't predict who your neighbors are. And so when you try and make some ordinance that affects everybody's personal property, you got to be careful that how you word that and stuff. And maybe there's going to be times, because you might only have 10 people in this town that are going to complain about other people's stuff on their private property. And you got to make sure that sometimes you might have to tell the people that are complaining that there's nothing you can do about it. That's big.
Our officers do that on a lot of our complaints, because we get a lot of stupid complaints, and our officers are wise and well-trained, that they address it, say, hey, this is person this. So, I mean, our officers do that, and they don't even deal with the complaint, because some people's complaints are just complaining.
We probably have some people in this town that wish they lived in a gated community, possibly. And that's,
we know.
That's not good. That's not good. That's all I
Thank you. I will close the public portion of this. I think we're all on the same page, council, that we are going to send this back to code committee, which we've addressed at the beginning of this. And I thank everybody for their comments and their input. I want to thank everybody for being respectful and constructive. I think that'll be our next step. So this probably won't be done. I know I got one new volunteer that's going to be at our next code meeting, wherever she went. I appreciate that. And I think that'll be the next step, is that we will push this to code meeting, and we'll advertise it and probably bring it up. But it's not going to make everybody happy, but we got to get somewhere. It'll be publicized, that you can come to our meetings, they're all on our website. I mean, we like more involvement by the public, just that's how we can get places, but we never get any.
And we.
It would be nice to not have to depend on Facebook, which isn't always a reliable source of information.
Right? How are you?
It's on our website. I mean, it's in the paper. I mean, we try to.
We also have a GoGov option.
They will be. Yeah, they will be.
Subscribe to the GoGov.
That's what comes in.
Well, family, you know, I think he was family because of Linton. Like, you guys are such good friends. I think he was family because of Linton. You know? I mean, I think of Linton like all the time. It's been yeah, I don't think
He's making $4.25 an hour. He's making $110,000 back in my house.
Oh, I love that, yeah. Oh, I love that. Okay, was Jerry the daughter? Or brothers with Jerry? She was a she. Okay, and then was Jerry the sister? Yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah. I know the family. Yeah.
I mean, and
I know it exactly.
That's the biggest thing, is people don't get involved. Until then, when they read it in the paper, they don't understand it all. And then they get upset. And a lot of people I've talked to, once we explain it to them, oh, that makes sense. And the bottom line is, there's 10, 15 properties we have issues with. And that's the ones that we need to give our police department ideas. We direct them.
Oh, me too.
Yeah, that's the purpose of it.
Me too. Oh, no, that's awesome. It's awesome. It's great to see you.
A lot of the comments are like, it's the fact they should have just stayed in their town, they know what I'm talking about. And I agree with a lot of them.
Back. Just didn't help. Oh, really? You think it's worse after? Oh, right.
They told me what?
She had dementia. She battled it about 5 years. It's horrible.
Oh,
yeah.
you're
She died in
covered.
December, so. Yeah, well, she just didn't go home. He's a sad guy, he's lonely, but we live really close. So Vince and I will stay every night. And then, like, I don't know, 3 weeks ago, my husband had a stroke. So we're just dealing with the new, but Dad's doing pretty good.
Even
He's
with
sad,
flashing
lonely.
sign,
He's doing good.
scares me.
Yeah, 63 years. So I will. See the brothers. Yeah, I see my boy and my brothers all the time. I'll tell them. Absolutely. Yeah, he's around. He's around, right? He never leaves. He's around. So it's good to see you.
Okay, we're gonna jump down to 7A, unfinished business. Review of bids for proposed Trestle Bridge repair. Bill Angerman.
Mayor. I'm
Okay,
just,
perfect.
couldn't see the mayor, that's important, so. At the last council meeting, we asked for direction from the council on Trestle Bridge, so there's some information in the packet. We had some information in the packet last week. 2 weeks ago. We did solicit quotations from 3 contractors. We solicited quotes from Kraus Anderson, Icon Constructors, and Knutson Construction. All 3 did submit a bid. Icon Construction did ask if they could modify the bid because they could not meet the deadline that we had. The deadline we had was that we'd like it done by June 15th. So we said submit that with that. They were still not the low. So the low quotation was submitted by Kraus Anderson Construction, an amount of $159,400. So how this bid was solicited was that we picked what we thought would be the maximum amount of wood that would be rotten or replaced. Ideally, it's less than this, and this price would be adjusted down. One of the questions Brian asked me when we got the bids was, well, could it go higher? Yes, it could go higher, but it would have to be something completely unforeseen. So for example, if we take the wood off and we find out that something we didn't, and we assumed was in good condition, like for example, the big steel beam, there was a crack in it or something like that, then we'd have to reevaluate. So what we believe is that this is a maximum amount, that it should be less than this. How much will not be known until, if the council moves forward, until the wood is being tore off and being fixed. So the other thing that we mentioned last week is that the city was 2 weeks ago, the city was a finalist for a grant for replacement, a transportation alternatives grant. We still have not received official word. I think that's a positive thing. I think we're in a good position. How good, don't know, but I still think that's a good position. If we get that grant, a reminder that was for 2029 was for the time frame that money would be available. Now we can do something called advanced construct. The soonest we'd be able to do something is 2027. So again, we're looking for a repair. You can't say a 2-year repair. Really, we're looking for something that if it was 5 to 10 years, we would have that flexibility. So this is the main thing, is the intent was to get the bridge open, have flexibility while we waited for this grant, or if the possibility is, we could be awarded a partial grant, apply next year. Again, this gives us a maximum flexibility. So with that, Mayor, I'll pause. And if the council, or if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
One of the questions I have is, if we decide to approve this and get the repairs done and get this Trestle Bridge open, what's the timeline? If we approve it today, when's the timeline that this is going to be done?
It's June 15th.
Okay.
So 2.5 months.
Barring any major things that they run into, I assume.
Barring the normal flooding, act of God type stuff, correct. When we did talk to Kraus, their intent was they would start on it immediately, and they would, order equipment, materials, and they would be out here probably in the next week or 2. The goal is they would like to be done before the normal construction summer season goes into effect.
My question for you, Bill, if I remember correctly, reading through their proposal, Kraus Anderson's, they stated they hadn't seen or they haven't been to the bridge yet. It's based off of your information you gave them and someone else.
They've been to the site. They had 4 people that came out and visited with our bridge engineer.
Okay,
So they have been to the site.
they have been in, okay.
Last
And I-
Friday, they
then I
were
must
out
have-
there, they were out there last Friday.
Okay, then I must have misread what it was
Yeah,
stated on the
or they
code.
mistyped it, one of the two. I'm gonna go with mistyped it, Bob. So
Okay.
they were out there.
Okay, good.
I have one question, I guess, Bill. Kraus Anderson did have in their removal of the fence on one side. What is the status, or how is that? How are they gonna, the fence is gonna stay? Or nobody else had addressed the fence, and that's only.
So that was something it's a good catch, Mike. So we did call and ask them. The intent was that they'd remove and put it back up. They thought it would be easier, quicker to take the one side down and then put that back up.
And then take the other side?
They said they only thought they needed to take down one side.
But, so where that fence goes through into those timbers, that board will stay, or that?
I'll be honest, I'm not 100% sure what they had in mind, but that'd be something we would figure out.
So I see, I mean, they got installation of 6x8 treated timbers, is that where the deck boards go on top of them, or those like the old railroad ties?
That's correct, yes.
Because it wasn't the main issue, is that where the 8x8s are in, and they're gonna put new posts for foundation?
Yes.
Okay.
Everybody understood where the finances are coming from this?
Possibilities.
What?
Possibility.
Lots
right?
of possibilities.
Yeah, not where they're coming from,
Yeah.
but the possibilities of them. So that's another discussion, I don't know.
And we did put together that sheet that I put in front of you on the areas that we could take this money from. There's several options.
I mean, we also have an option, we haven't discussed, do you want to keep it closed?
Yeah, right, that's another option.
I mean, we haven't talked really about that. Well, I kind of know where we need to go and want to go, but do we want to wait and at least see if we get this grant to make that easier till 2029 or 2030 to save this type of money? I mean, there's a lot of different options. It's really going to come down to a time factor. Do we need to open it for our residents can use it, our visitors can use it, and spend that money because it's a valuable part?
Well, I think it is valuable, and the other question you say about saving this dollars, but in 5 years with inflation, are we going to spend that already? In the new cost
100%
of
agree.
bridge?
I mean, there's a lot of different options. I mean, I don't know about you guys, but I assume you've heard, when's the bridge gonna be open? When's the bridge gonna be open? Because it does get used more than I thought. So, I mean, do I hate spending that type of money for maybe a 2-year, 3-year fix? It's a lot of money. But if we don't get that grant or we don't get as much, and then we decide to do it, that $160,000 could be $200,000 to repair. So, I mean,
That's a question too. In our discussions, we talked about a bridge repair before of approximate years of service that it would provide us. Did they give any indication on that, Bill? If they do these repairs, how long could it go?
Our bridge engineer estimated 5 to 10 years because we still have the other abutments that we're not addressing. We still have some of the steel beams, et cetera. So this is just repairing the rotting wood. So we still have the other older items, but we're not in as bad a shape as the wood.
Okay. So we're still talking minimum 5 years out of this.
and we also look at it, if we wait a month before we make the decisions on the grants and stuff, this contractor or contractors may not be able to get it done as soon, and or the price may go up because it's in their busier construction season. So there's a lot of different variables.
And the other thing is, and Bill and I have talked about this, but if we were to get a grant, and we found out now, it's probably 2 years before we could advance construct, in which case we would have to bond for that because of federal dollars and the permitting, and is that correct, Bill?
Yes. If we are fortunate to receive a grant, the quickest we'd be able to do this would be 2027.
So now we're down 2 years. Is it important to us to get it open sooner? I hate spending that type of money, but I think if we wait, it could cost us more money in the long run or whatever reason. Refresh my memory, is there another grant we can reapply for? Let's say we get some of this money from this grant, is there another grant that we talk about or that we could possibly get more
Again, next
for
year.
the same plant
You can apply for the same grant 2 years in a row, correct?
to get the rest of the money or more money
Well,
too?
there was a grant, remember, Bill, for that would pay for some of the design?
That's correct.
So I just knew there were some other options that we could get more money to, that I had heard or we talked about or read or.
So I apologize. So we have applied for another grant. I'm sorry. So thanks, Brian. We've applied for 2 grants. We applied for a grant to pay for the design because that's an ineligible expense in the other grant. So we applied for a grant to pay for the construction. We applied for a grant to pay for the engineering. And both are pending. Though the grant for the design, we don't hear that until the summer. So 2 grants we've applied for.
I have a question. Is it normal that it's gone beyond what we thought it would be to hear? Or, like I heard you say that was positive. Is it normal that process takes longer than what they say?
Unfortunately, they called us to tell us that one of the members was sick when they were voting.
Oh, okay.
So.
Okay.
Is this a MnDOT type?
MnDOT District 6, correct? So for MnDOT people in the room, it's the ATP. Okay, it's the Area Transportation Partnership Show. It's a group of MnDOT and the city and county people in southeast Minnesota. And then.
Short staff for 10 months at least, so.
We had the snowstorm 2 weeks ago. That was one of their makeup dates. So we're fighting a little bit of bad luck, Joan.
And then if we don't get this grant and we apply next year, it'll be
30.
Yeah.
2030 for the actual dollars. We can elect to do it earlier.
Okay.
Yeah, I guess the main question is, do we keep the bridge closed for at least 2 more years, best case scenario, or longer if we don't get the grants? Or do you repair it and get 5 to 10 more years out of it the way it is if needed?
Or decide to wait 2 years and then get another bid and we're at 240,000 to do the same thing we're doing today. Or whatever the inflation is over the time.
Mainly they're fixing the 2 end abutments that go up to the steel beam.
The main thing they're fixing is the wood. One abutment on the north side is rotted. And then they're fitting the timbers that go across the railroad ties, and then what they call the stringers that run lengthwise on top of the railroad ties, and then the deck boards on top of that. So think of it as a crisscross. Yeah, boards, so they're replacing the rotten ones of the timbers below, all the deck on top, and then the rotten stringers. That makes sense.
And I think it's important to remember, and correct me if I'm wrong, Bill, but WHAS's bridge engineer did talk with the engineer that wrote the report that shut the bridge down. Is that right? They spoke about possible repairs. So this has been vetted both ways. And, with a repair, if we were to get grant money, then we can decide when to replace. So it could be 2 years, it could be 3 years, it could be 4 years. We keep an eye on the bond market because we have to bond for it, and whatever other factors, inflation, that type of thing. So there'll be another decision to be made in there if you repair. If you don't repair, then we'll just wait until we know if we have money. Or not, but it would be closed for at least, another 2 summers or 3 summers possibly.
What's the end date? If we get some of that grant, is there a date that we have to use it by, or is they?
But the rule is you have to encumber the money in that federal fiscal year, so that would basically take you to about 2030.
Okay.
You would
So
have,
a year after we do that.
basically, yeah.
So this repair will be like, I'll have to keep.
You'll still need to keep vehicles and, correct.
Walking in and snowmobiles and stuff.
Snowmobiles, pedestrians, bikes, yes.
And we'll keep the concrete barriers in place that were there. to keep this larger vehicles off.
So do people run their ATV and those types of, they don't go over that bridge?
Can't have an ATV on the trail.
Oh, okay.
Snowmobiles in the winter, yes.
Do we need a motion?
If-
Okay, I would make the motion that we prepare and use the low bid, the Kraus Anderson construction bid of $159,400.
Do we have to make that decision right now where we want to take that fund out, Kim?
No, I mean, you can decide where you want to take the money out, or you can decide to take out.
So we can approve it now and then when the bill comes, decide how we want to pay for that?
Well, I think you should,
Because we got some options, or do you want us to predict?
I think you should mention the options that, I mean, these are just the options Brian and I put together today, if we wanted to self-finance it. Brian, I don't have the sheet in front of me, so would you
got it.
please read them?
Yep, I can read through it. So in talking with Kim, I said, we need to know, be able to tell council if they want to do a repair, where does this money come from? So there's several areas that we came up with. We could take the money from Fund 421. This is the Rochester sales tax money that was put in many years ago. A previous council designated that part of that money would go to the State Theater, which it did, part to a forgivable loan program for local businesses. I think that was a facade thing, which it went for. And the remainder would be for an industrial park, a future industrial park. The industrial park has not materialized at this point. 160,000 of the remaining 221,198 could be used for this. I would recommend this not be an interfund loan, since this fund was not funded with our levy, but rather was designated from DMC for cities close to Rochester. So that would have no levy impact. Another option would be to take the money from Fund 104, the Municipal Reserve Fund. Currently has 285,000 in it, which is not earmarked for a specific purpose. We would like to see that one set up as an interfund loan, an interfund loan that would have a direct $18,756.88 impact on the levy for the next 10 years. That's about 0.75% on the levy. Another option would be Fund 600, water restricted. Currently has a balance of 924,600 and some change. That would be set up as an interfund loan over 10 years with the same 0.75% impact on the levy. And the last one would be the sewer restricted, which we'll talk about later as well. Currently has a little over $2 million fund balance in there. Again, same 0.75% impact on the levy. So 3 interfund loans that we would pay back over 10 years or sooner. So if we get the grant, there's a mechanism we can pay those off. Or no levy impact with the Rochester sales tax money if you wish to change the designation. Again, the industrial parks are a tough thing. They sit for years and years and years. And the small amount of money doesn't do a whole lot of good for that. But nice to have it there too, just in case for some seed money. So those are just some options that we could think of that would be viable. All those loans would carry a 3% interest rate, which is more than they're making in the money market. So there would be a payback of interest as well on those funds, whichever account it comes from, except the 421. The 421 would just take 160 out of that 221. A lot of words.
So as we weigh the spending of the money, and we know that we're currently having less success than we'd like at the Capitol with bringing in the money for the North Zumbro Sanitary District, my fear being we're gonna have to cough up more of that cost for building that. That's gonna directly impact the levy. So anything we can do spending money that doesn't raise the levy, that means using these funds 421 as a redirect to the purpose of, like, that money was obviously established because the industrial park is a really good concept, really good desire of the city, but it hasn't quite gone where it's wanted. So if we could spend from that one for this bridge project, that would help relieve the 19,000 in the grand scheme of what we're talking about for millions of dollars for sewer treatment. It's
Well, kind of, so the wastewater would be fee-based. It's fee-based, that's an enterprise account, so that would not affect the levy, it would affect water or sewer rates. You know, if we get the funding, the sewer rates will double, is what we're projecting. If we don't get it, they'll quadruple or more. So that would be, sewer rates would increase, not, it wouldn't go on the levy.
right, but I guess
But it's
in my mind,
money on
taking
your
money out of the
Smart.
citizens, residents'
Yeah.
pockets, that's what I was going with.
Absolutely.
So if we have the money that we can spend, that's not going to affect their money that they're gonna pay in the future, that would be my preference for that redirection option.
I like that option too. I just want to make sure though, those funds were earmarked for that. Do we have any legality or of discretion that we can or cannot use them? I guess is my
You
biggest.
can make the decision as a council to make a motion or a resolution, I'm not sure which,
We'll come
to
up with
change
what we need
that.
to do for that.
That is your, as things change, councils can take different positions than what were originally planned for. But it has to be a motion. No one could arbitrarily just pull the money out of there. That has to go with your approval.
My opinion on using Fund 421 and doing the DMC sales tax, it hasn't been discussed what we want to use that money for, how we want to use that money for. Do we want to use it for growth, subdivisions, commercial lots, because it's part of sales tax, or transportation or something like that, that is given from sales tax of Rochester versus doing something from our water restricted or sewer restricted that is paid by our residents, or our usage that our bridges majority used by our residents. Do we have campers and people that use the trails? Yes. I mean, that would be my 2 cents on not using that Fund 421. I've always known it's been there. I know we've always had that money. It's never been discussed in the 9 years that I've been doing this, that what we want to use that sales tax money for. Kim, have we used any of that money for anything? What are some of the other things that we've used that money for?
Well, the prior councils wanted that to be a three-legged stool. So they wanted part of it for the arts, to the State Theater, which they did give some to the State Theater for their refurbishment campaign. There was $100,000 that went out to downtown businesses as forgivable loans. Also, some of that was paid back early because they sold their buildings before their loan term was forgivable. So that also funded the speaker system for downtown out of there. So they kind of were thinking it was 50,000 at that time, because it's grown over time with interest. So at the time it was, I believe, $328,000. So I think it was 50,000, believe they gave the theater, and then $100,000 to the forgivable loan program, and then the remainder went to the industrial park, which would have been roughly $178,000.
And this would bring it down to 160,000. So if the original thought was 178,000 towards the industrial park, most of that would still be here.
And I assume there's
It'll be 100.
certain things we can and can't do with a restricted fund.
You can opt as a council to vote and approve what you want to spend this money on.
On our instructed or restricted funds, sewer or water?
On the enterprise funds? Or are you talking like the water and sewer?
The water restricted and the sewer, we only can do certain things with that, right?
Well, in water and sewer, they stay in water and sewer. You can make loans. It's common practice in many cities to take loans from those funds because they tend to be the funds with the higher loan balances. You, of course, look ahead and see what's coming to see if there's needs, and you don't want to trample on any needs that may be coming. But and some people consider it an investment, just like we invest in CDs, money markets. We're paying that back and it's paying back at a comparable rate to the market. So that's totally up to you if you want to or not.
We're still paying, the city's still paying the interest on it.
The city's
We're just
paying, so
the-
if you want to put it this way, consider the enterprise fund would be the bank. Yep, so we'd pay the interest
Come up
back.
with the 18,000 in interest out of.
18,000
our fund.
principal and interest, yep, so that would be a direct levy
Yes.
impact.
Whereas the other fund would be less than 18,000 for interest.
So that's at 421, we wouldn't pay any interest to ourselves if we used that.
It'd be the straight 160,000. Whereas if you went with the other ones, it'd be the 160,000 plus the 10 years of interest at 3%. And that would be on the levy.
And it should be said that when we say there's not a need, there's not an immediate need for those dollars within those accounts. We project out over many, many years. And so that's how we can say, okay, we can borrow this amount now because that money won't be needed until down the road. So those dollars that are in those accounts, they're needed. They're going to be needed at some point, but we can project out that we can spare this much for this amount of time, if that makes sense. So any of the options are plenty viable.
It's all about what the council desires to do.
I like the idea of we're not paying ourselves all that interest. You know, if there's money there for that.
Especially if the funds haven't been used or talked about in how many years. And if we have discretion on it, here's a need. I think it is a need that the city does have that bridge repaired so that it can be used.
Do we want to, Joan, if you would want to amend your motion to add a funding mechanism, Kim, does that seem like that we could do that? Does that seem reasonable, Mike?
What do you mean by a funding mechanism?
If you want to choose one of these now. If you chose one of these now, or if you want to wait and they have us bring something back to you. Oh, and you know what? We would need a resolution though, probably, right?
I would feel better.
Yeah, so we can't do that. So let's.
So leave the motion as is and then we'll come back with
We'll bring
the
a
funding.
resolution back. I think it'll be a resolution. We'll work with Mike Flaherty. Oh, Mike, you have it?
Yeah, no, I think the council has the authority to do that. I guess I'm a little confused. I'm not quite tracking what the motion is. So.
I think we all are.
Yeah, I apologize. So is this related to the bridge accepting a contract?
Yes.
Yes. So, I mean, to my way of thinking, those are two separate issues. If you want to, if you've opened the bids and you want to accept the lowest, assuming it was competitively bid, and you're accepting the lowest responsible bidder to enter into that construction contract, I think that's one issue, and that's kind of what's on the agenda. And then separately, how you're going to fund that, out of the city budget or city budgets is really a separate issue. And I think you can address that at a later time, or you can just table the bid opening and do that at the same time. But I think those are separate issues. So that's why I was confused. I didn't know if we're making a motion to, hire the construction company now, or if we're deciding the funding now, or we're doing both.
Okay, let's do that separately on April. We'll bring it back to the April 4th council meeting for funding mechanism.
Right, so we'll just make the motion to accept the Kraus Anderson construction bid of $159,400 tonight. So I would make that motion.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes 5-0-0.
Can I ask another question on that? Who oversees this project then? With Kraus Anderson?
Well, it would be our city engineer.
Can I just suggest that the Public Works work side by side with him on this project to include Public Works on, so he's up to speed on everything that's happening?
Yeah, I think that's been standard practice on most projects. So yeah, absolutely.
And I have a question, Brian. Did the city engineer prepare the bid specs for this?
Yes.
Did somebody say, okay, yeah.
We're all good, Mike. Yep.
Good, thank you.
Perfect. Let's do new business, a request to switch credit debit card provider.
All right, you have that in front of you. Miranda prepared a memo talking about the credit cards. Nothing's changed since then. She did put a recommendation for which credit, because we will need a new credit card machine to read the credit. And now, actually one that has tap availability. Also, I was talking to her today and she was saying that it could possibly go to be able to expand to the pool, so they could have a credit card machine out there, and we can talk about that whole process at that point. We've got a ways to go with that. You know me, I'm a control freak, so I like things to keep things close so I know what's going on. But, so we would like you to consider for approval, approving us going to Zift Financial and to purchase the Smart P2 Smart Pad or P2 Pro. I believe the price difference is $20. So, I'm not sure which one Miranda was more in favor of, but I figure with a $20 difference, it's not material. What would be nice is to have one provider. With the 3 providers, we pay 2 service fees for the year, as you can see, of $89 and $95 a year. Also, we do not have capabilities to take certain payments online because they're just undefined. We have a limited SKU of things we can use for payments with PSN and Gila. So I think we need to move with the times and keep our payments up to date. More and more people pay electronically. More and more people want to use their credit card. They want to pay online. The whole point, I believe, is to be able to do more payment online. We're trying to figure out how to get dog licenses online, how to get all those things done to make it easier for people's schedule and convenient for them. And they do pay a convenience fee that the city doesn't pay it. That all gets charged as a convenience fee on top of whatever their bill is. So
if anyone was wishing to make a motion, it would be to switch our current credit debit card provider to Zift and purchase the new payment terminal. That's what we're asking.
I would make that motion.
Is this SUNY device, this works, is recommended by Zift? Is that their, okay. I will second that motion.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes 5-0-0. 8B, new plow truck purchase. Brian?
Yes, at the last meeting, you authorized the purchase of a new plow truck, and grateful for that. But we forgot to add the taxes and fees onto that price that was approved. You had approved a price of, whatever it was, 300,000 something. 300,399 was the approved purchase price. But with taxes and fees, we're at 320,888 and 63 cents. We're just looking to reapprove at that price because we can't get away with not paying that.
I'll make that motion. But it's really not the fees, it's the sales tax that drives that up.
I'll second that.
And I do want to comment, I know Kevin's been working hard with the street guys on the plow truck, and I actually called Kevin to make sure, and he was like, this will do the city well with the brine stuff and stuff like that. So, and I just mentioned that as long as we start using it, as soon as we have the truck and not 2-3 years down the road, because there's a little bit of setup for it to get that brine, which.
We'll expect an approval for spending money on a tank and a pump to be able to load the brine into the truck. So sometime through the summer.
So I think it's gonna benefit the safety of our town and our city to do that. So I did want to reach out to Kevin on that too.
Great, thank you.
So we had a motion and a second. Any further discussions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes 5-0-0. Let's do 8C Resolution 2025-17, authorizing interfund loan to fund the purchase of the new plow truck. Kim?
Yes, we're looking into options for financing. We have 2 basic options. One is that we can go out to an outside lender and pay them interest. But in looking at the fund balances, again, I feel that we have adequate fund balances that we could do an interfund loan and pay ourselves the interest. We have to set it up as a loan. So, I mean, we always need to repay back what we say. It will impact the budget exactly the same way as we had set up with Ellers. It's maybe a few $100s less than what they had anticipated per year. So a 10-year term at 3%, and I'm suggesting we take it out of the sewer restricted fund, and it will be paid back over 10 years beginning in 2026.
Do we have to take out, do we have some cash on hand for the truck, or are we borrowing for all of it?
I'm suggesting we take out the entire amount for the equipment certificate that we had budgeted for the year. Because we were going to take out, with the budget, there is a $350,000 equipment certificate that we were taking out. Last year, we had on the budget to take out a $200,000, but we were able to fund that in a different way. We put part of it on the levy, and then we took out $125,000 because we got LGA last year in a greater amount than we had anticipated. So we did not have to take out that $200,000 loan, but we did talk about taking out the $350,000. So I would prefer, since we have to set it up as a loan, to take it all out at one time, move that entire amount of money into the capital equipment fund.
And this is why the resolution says, and additional capital equipment. So it's for the truck, but really what this borrowing does is keep the capital equipment schedule solvent. It's part of the plan that was set forth in our capital financial planning.
Yeah, makes sense.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second that.
Any further discussions? All in favor?
Roll call.
A roll call.
Oh, yeah, thank you.
Aye. Joan?
Aye.
Kevin?
Aye.
Fred? Aye. Passes 5-0-0. Let's do 8D, concrete for a water fill station. Mike?
So we're getting set up and ready to get that water fill station put in on the cold storage building. We've got the road put in with the crushed rock. We just need to get that cemented on the north side of that building. That way we don't have any issues with the trucks pulling up there to load and get water, because inevitably they will overfill their trucks and they're gonna have lots of water running. And I guess we've talked about this water fill station for some time, but it'll pay for that concrete and it'll pay for a lot of things in a short period of time, because we lose a lot of water. It's just kind of the nature of the beast. We don't got total control without a water fill station, so that'll be a credit card way for them to pay for water too.
Have I know we talked about the credit card system there. We have not got that hooked up or got a final approval on that.
Oh, and we're still waiting for the Vodafone company to a certain degree. They got fiber plowed out there, but Jake's gonna set that up so we can get that credit card and that fill station running soon.
I believe we did have approval to do the fill station.
I know we've had, it's been.
Yeah. We've ordered, we have it, we just need to get it, the final done on it, so.
And I assume this concrete's gonna be strong enough to handle these trucks with full water.
6 inches.
Okay, perfect. Should be strong enough.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Any further discussions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes 5-0-0. Thanks, Mike.
And just for your information, that'll come out of the water fund.
8E, Larry Zilsdorf, I don't know how many years he's worked for the city of Zumbrota. Mike, do you know? Several?
2 different times.
Yeah, but he has put his resignation in as of August 15th. I know probably more to come, but I know he's done a lot of good stuff for the city of Zumbrota. And I just wanted to thank him for his service for how many years? Twice. And he'll be missed, but time to enjoy retirement too. So I just wanted to know that he put his last day of August 15th.
And we would like a motion and a second to accept the retirement, because what that does is create the opening on August 15th, and that allows staff to go to work on looking at the job description, whether it needs to be changed, and also when to post and that type of stuff. We'll bring that back to you, but we want to create the opening first by officially accepting his resignation notice. You don't have to, but no.
I'll second that.
Any further discussions? All in favor?
Aye.
Oppose? Well, I kind of do, but passes 5-0-0. And one other thing here, 8F, I think we talked about it a little bit. Rescheduling our June 19th meeting, because it's Juneteenth. We can't have any public offices on that date. I know we talked to EDA, so they're going to move their meeting, and I'd like to move council to June 18th. Same time, same place, just move it one day earlier, and EDA is going to go to the 11th, the week before. So I just need a motion and a second to approve the council meeting from the 19th to the 18th of June.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Any further discussions? All in favor?
Aye.
Oppose? Passes 5-0-0. Reports, Brian, you have nothing? No.
No, actually, with all this other stuff going on, I didn't even put together a report, but yeah, we'll catch up on reports next meeting.
Perfect. Tony?
Nothing from us.
Bill, you have anything to add?
Nothing additional.
Miles, you got any reports?
The only report I have is that we are looking for a new planning and zoning commissioner. So if anyone's interested, please contact City Hall.
Perfect. Thanks, Miles. Kim?
Nothing tonight, thank you.
Mike? I have nothing. Bob?
I have nothing. Mike was pointing at Mike.
Oh, the other Mike.
Oh, Mike, do you have anything? Mike Flaherty?
I'll just say that I was listening carefully during the public comments, and we'll work with the code committee to come up with some ideas to fix the parking ordinance. I have some ideas, and we'll work with you on that to try to come up with something, but nothing else.
Perfect. Thanks, Mike. Sorry to forget about you.
Okay.
Joan?
I'd just like to just let everybody know I appreciate like the community coming out and giving their input. That was really wonderful to see. So,
Kevin?
Just a question, we don't have any resolutions set for next week that we have to move, or next time, move off the 19th, right? We didn't set any hearings or anything? Oh, all right, then I have nothing to report.
Right. Meeting adjourned.